Hey buddy, MegRoller31 back here for FSI DFS. I'll be breaking down the NASCAR Cup race at New Hampshire. TK is still away for the weekend, and hopefully he'll be back after the break. Yep, that's right. After today's race, we got 2 weeks off until Watkins Glen comes back. I believe it's August 7th or August 8th. So some time to watch the Olympics and focus on some other DFS things, and then we'll get back and have a strong push to the playoff and through the rest of the year. So Xfinity was really good today. Our cover guy won the race. Lots of the plays we talked about did very, very well. My cash lineup was cruising, and it came down to having a choice between Dawson Cram and Kyle Weatherman. And Weatherman was like in 19th, and Cram was in 20th, and then Cram's car just kind of stalled out, and he finished 35th. So I ended up having a good day, but I lost about $500 of earning potential. I definitely made money in cash today. So hopefully we'll be able to duplicate that and take it all the way to the finish line for this cup. So as we promised you by getting the 25 likes last week, we have the sheet that we give to our subscribers up here for you. Starting position, team, manufacturer, what our DK projection is for them. Some of these might be a little bit lower, but I'll explain that as we go through the video. Their salary, what type of play are they? Are they a cash play, a GPP play, a fade? Prime are some of my favorite plays for the slate. What I feel ownership is going to be. And then how was this made? It's based on what their season stats are, especially DNF rate and like how many laps they've led, finishing position, things like that, fastest laps, and then their track history, if they have any here. If they don't have track history here, I looked at similar tracks like Phoenix, other flat tracks that are a little bit less than a half mile. It's a 1 mile track here. So the comparable tracks are Phoenix, Martinsville, and Richmond, which they've ran on this year. And then another track that's semi-comparable is Nashville. So in making the model for the speed component of it, we took Nashville, New Hampshire race last year because they did race here. Xfinity didn't, but they were actually here. And then we took Phoenix, Martinsville, Richmond, and Nashville and kind of weighed them and then made a composite score. So start right up at the top. We have Kyle Busch, who definitely seems to have hit his stride. He's coming back. I don't know if it's all the extra races and truck and Xfinity that helped him kind of get over the not having practice thing and be able to start to perform at a high level. I think he's going to be very popular tomorrow. I don't think he's going to be the chalkiest, but he'd probably be definitely top 10 in ownership, maybe top 5. I did take out his New Hampshire 2020 race just simply because he did not do well there. He finished 36. So if I throw that in there, his projection is horrible. So I'm just taking that data point out. And it has him right outside the top 10. And this isn't one of his better tracks. I think, starting up here, it does maybe give him the advantage that he might be able to get out and lead early. And this is a track where it's really hard to pass. And in the Xfinity video, I said, I just remember some years it was just, there seldom has been like 3 or 4 dominators here. It's usually like one guy that gets most of the laps led, and then another guy with a interesting pitch strategy might get maybe 50 laps or so. So I believe it's 300 laps. Let me just slide over to that one. Yeah, 301 laps here. So, and I talked about, I think it's the year that I believe it was Adam Petty got killed in qualifying or practice here, and then they put restrictor plates on the cars and nobody passed anybody. It was like a giant parade for the whole race. It was the most boring thing I've ever seen. Jeff Burton led from like flag to flag. It was horrible. Did see a little bit of passing and some guys in Xfinity get up towards the front that we knew would like rise up there, especially Bell. And he started in the teens. So it is possible. It is a race where Tires aren't eaten up too bad, so they're not a huge factor like they were last week in Atlanta. Fuel mileage is pretty good for the Xfinity race. They were able to go like almost 2 stages without even having to pit stop for fuel. So there's some strategies that people can take. Some of the things that really help drivers do well here is if they have really clean, fast pit stops and have really good restarts. That's how you gain position here. It's not necessarily on the track that you're going to. So it's important to find somebody up top here that's going to lead early, because they're probably going to be there till, at least if there's a competition caution, or to the end of stage one, and then find somebody else who can kind of work their way up and maybe take over the race like Bell did. So the other thing too is they did not put down the extra P1 compound stuff that they sometimes do at track to make a second groove. So there's really only one, the PJ1, there's really only one groove at this racetrack. So again, I'm not going to say it's going to be a completely boring race, but I'm going to say it is going to be hard to pass. So Kyle Busch does make sense up here as a cash play, because if he gets out there and leads all these early laps, it might be hard to get by him. But I do think I really like Martin Truex Jr. as my favorite guy up here. I like the price break that I get at 9-1. He had a great season and then he started to struggle, but he is very, very good at these flat half-mile tracks. And if you look at Phoenix and Martinsville and Richmond, 6.3, 4.34, like I have him finishing third here with a speed composite, but that's just because Nashville was a little bit of a struggle for him. If I take that Nashville score out, it doesn't help enough to move his number up. But I think he's maybe one of the most popular drivers for in lineups, and he's definitely one. And I definitely love the Gibbs cars here. They were strong in this race for Xfinity. They've been strong here over the years, and I think this program really has this track figured out. So Chase Elliott, I'm kind of fading him here. I think the Gibbs cars are good. He really isn't as good on this type of track. He's more of a road racer, super speedway. So 9-8, I'd rather save the money and take a Truex. And I think he's starting too high up. I'm not saying you can't play him if you're doing multi-entry, like just still keep him in your pool as somebody that can be a dominator, but I prefer the Gibbs cards so much more than this Hendrick car here. Kurt Busch won last week. So happy for him. It was a great race. It was great to see. Now he's starting way too high, so he's a fade here. If you look at his average running position, it's about 13th. I have him finishing 14th, so he's going to probably lose about 10 places. Might see like 22 DK points. I'm not interested here. Alex Bowman, same thing. Really not his type of track. Really, again, if Alex Bowman finishes top 5 here, it never surprises me, but he's not someone I'm going to play in cash here. If you look at Phoenix and Martinsville, like 17, 14, not bad at Richmond, 18, 17 here last year. So I haven't finished about 18th, losing 13 points, place differential points. So not too excited here. Denny Hamlin, absolutely like him too. I think he might be the best flat track driver here in the series between him and Truex. Again, it's a Gibbs car, and I think I'm going to start my lineup with Hamlin and Truex. I think those two are the first two I'm going to put in for cash up in the higher range. So I really like him. If you look at like Phoenix 3.8, Martinsville 1.8, Richmond 1.7, last year New Hampshire 2.4. He's the number 1 overall speed composite. So I don't have him as a prime play because I think starting 6, he's a little far back to get up there and lead. And then I think there's some other guys that might shuffle forward and get out ahead of him. But I do think he'll have a solid day, and I do think he is a threat to win this race and maybe even get up there and dominate. But since I don't see him doing it like right off the bat, that's why I have him as just a pure cash play, not one of my prime plays. Ryan Blaney, he's the hybrid one that is usually pretty good in both horsepower packages. for Penske, but I just really haven't seen him have success on flat tracks like this. Like, yes, he was good in Phoenix and Martinsville, but um, Nashville, he was pretty bad. New Hampshire, he was last year, he was about 12 average running positions. So I think he finishes like maybe in the top 10, but I think he's a little bit too high starting here. I like so many other guys better than him. I think he'll have high ownership. I'm not saying write him off. I think the price is right and everything, but I'd rather pay a little bit more and have Truex. I'd rather, you know, take his teammate Kozlowski, who's been better in the package that they're running on flat tracks, or the other Penske guys here. So I'll get to that in a second. Tyler Reddick again. I mean, he's just last week. I didn't think he could maintain where he was running. He did well, but just looking at his history on tracks like this, it looks like he's going to finish in maybe around anywhere from between 10 and 15th, if with a ceiling. So 6.8 is not a bad price, but I just don't think he can stay up here with some of the other guys behind him that might get ahead of him. So he's a fade for me. Christopher Bell, obviously my favorite play on the slate. And I can't believe and I don't know if maybe there's a lot of the other articles and information that's out there were people's opinions before. But as I said in the Xfinity video, when I saw Christopher Bell's stats here, even though it says 14th overall, just looking deeper into it, being a Gibbs car, just looking at his Xfinity history here, before I even knew he was in an Xfinity race, he was one of my favorite players or drivers on the slate. And I had him in my cash lineup as probably the third guy in before I even knew he was racing in Xfinity. Then I saw he was racing in Xfinity. It made me even more excited that he'd be out there and get some laps here and be able to get some run on this track and get some experience with that. And then even past that, he goes out and he dominates the race and wins. So 7,700 is a steal for this guy. Absolute steal. So definitely going to lock him in my lineups. He's one of my prime plays there. Kyle Larson. He seems to be slowing down a little bit. Not really good on short, flat tracks. I think he's going to be chalky. I think he's going to be very popular just because of the season he's having. He was decent at Phoenix. Martinsville about 15th. Richmond about 10th. Last time he was here. Well, he didn't run in New Hampshire last year. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong line. I'm looking at Keselowski's, but Larson, 10th at Phoenix, 8th at Martinsville, 20th at Richmond. He did really well at Nashville, but Hendrick's cars are fast. I don't struggle playing him, but I would rather save the money and play Hamlin and bank $1,200, or even play Truex and save almost 2K or over 2K there. So I'm not saying Larson's a horrible play, but I'm more in the Gibbs cars here than the Hendricks cars. I think a lot of people will play him, and if he beats me, he beats me, and it will just go on to the legacy of this amazing season he's having. I completely understand it. It's sometimes, why don't you play the best running back or play the best, point guard on a DFS slate? But in this situation, there's other people in better situations that I just think are better plays there. So again, don't write Kyle Larson off. If you're multi-entering or you're rotating dominators, then he's definitely one. And that's a good strategy that you could have here, is to get your value plays in line and then leave 3 or 4, or you can't do 3 or 4, but 2 to 3 spots up top, depending on how much you're comfortable punting, and then rotate through different groups of dominators to try to see if you can catch the 2 of them. And then if your value plays are solid and the dominators hit, then you win the money. And that's a great strategy for taking down some tournaments. So Brad Keselowski, like I said, I do like him here. He had a really good run here last year. He had a really good run in Phoenix, but he's kind of losing momentum and really has not had a great run recently. So he's great on flat tracks, but I don't know if it's a distraction, if he's looking towards next year, if he's just had a complete fallout with his team, or the resources that they've had on this team, they're putting more towards Blaney and Logano. I'm not sure, but would it surprise me if Keselowski does really well here? No. Um, but 9-3, I would rather play Truex at 9-1. He's a GPP. I think I'll probably have him in a couple lines, but he's not someone I'm looking at cash. Kevin Harvick, again, he's just way too high priced. He has done well here in the past, but again, when you have such a long career, drivers always have a period where have good history at some place. 6 overall. I have him as finishing 5th overall. I definitely think I'll put him in my GPP lineup. I usually pair him and Kyle Busch in the GPP lineup just because I know they have the potential, but I just don't see them consistently putting together. They don't have the floor I'm looking for. So, and I think he'll have a lot of ownership. Austin Dillon, the RCR cars have been fast. He's starting a little too high up here. I have him finishing about 15th, which is only losing 2 spots. So it's not bad at 7,400. So if he was the last guy in my lineup, I'm fine with that. But I'd probably rather take a shot on like Ross Chastain for 400 less, or like Newman and Stenhouse, or like a couple hundred less starting further on down, more place differential. So I'm not GPP for Austin Dillon here. Matt DiVenzetto, he's been really good at this track. So I think he's got top 10 upside. He's mad. So this could go either way. He could be very motivated to go out and do well. He's a free agent. He doesn't have a ride next year just to get a win and show people that they want to invest in him. Or maybe he's just going to try to screw over the Wood Brothers team. And okay, you guys have made your decision. And if you don't follow NASCAR news, obviously Keselowski's out, and Cindric was supposed to take over for Matt DiBenedetto. We already kind of knew that, but then Cindric got bumped up to the 2 car. So I think Matt DiBenedetto was thinking, hey, you know what? Here's my opportunity. When Keselowski was announced that he's not going to be there, either he was going to get bumped up to the 2 car, or if Cindric good there, then at least he could keep his ride with the Wood Brothers, because even though the Wood Brothers isn't a Penske car, they're pretty much affiliations with each of them, with the Ford and everything. But then they decided to bring in Harrison Burton from Xfinity Series to lock it up here. And so Matt DiBenedetto has no ride now. So that could be motivation for him, or you could see a complete collapse. Do not know. I think he's a cash play borderline 7,500. Just I think he can get up in the top 10. I've got him finishing 9th. If he fits in your build, he's not a jam it in. He's an available option in that price range if it works out for your build. Joey Logano, I absolutely love him. He's my favorite out of the Penske cars for this race. So he's one of my prime plays here. I think he's gonna have high ownership, and I think the core 4 that I'm looking at to build around would be Truex, Bell, Logano, and Hamlin. If I can get them in line, if the last 2 guys in aren't like horrible guys or guys I've listed as fade, then I haven't really worked with too many builds yet, but I want to see if I can get those in and get a lineup I like. If not, then it's going to be definitely Bell is going to be there, and I'll be doing a rotation between the 3 of them, between Truex, Hamlin, and Logano. And I'll at least have 2 of those 3 guys in my cash lineups that I try to build. So I'd probably end up splitting my cash 3 ways if I can't get all of them in a lineup that I like. And then at least, I'd feel solid with the rest of the core, and then having those 2 of those 3 guys as my dominators. William Byron, I think he's like okay cash play. I really don't like the price. I do like there's place differential. He hasn't finished in the top 10 here yet, but then again, he's really improved as a driver this year. He's got a great crew chief. Hendrick's cars have been decent. The other similar tracks, 10.6, 6.8, 8. So I have him finishing sixth, getting 10 different place differential points. So a little bit expensive. Prefer Denny Hamlin for 600 less. But I think he's definitely somebody you can play in cash. I think he's only got mean ownership, so he might be one to get at a lower ownership than you would think and be a good dominator to put in some of your lineups. Chris Buescher starting way too high. He's a fade for me. Probably will finish about 25th. Not good on this type of tracks. And then we come to Bubba Wallace. And I have been the Bubba Wallace whisperer, as TK said. He's starting 18th, which to me is a little bit high. I'd prefer him starting anywhere between 20 to 25. But here's the thing. Bubba has been doing good recently. I know his average finish at this track, I think, is about 22nd or so. So he hasn't had too many runs here. And that wasn't in as good equipment. So here's my case for Bubba Wallace being a cash play. Okay. I like the price. He's only 6,500. And I know 18th is a little bit risky, but the car has been holding up. Bubba seems to have figured out, and he has come out and said it hasn't been the car that was the issue, it was him. And I think he's learned a lot. This car is co-owned by Denny Hamlin, who's one of my favorite guys here. It has a Gibbs affiliation, who's my favorite team at this track. And in looking at it in all reality, I think this field, even though they didn't have practice and qualifying, is kind of to the point where it's set correctly. As I look behind Bubba, there's only a handful of guys that I see could possibly get ahead of him. But I do see guys ahead of him in this race that could potentially go backwards. So as long as he finishes around where he starts at 6,500, I think he makes a lot of sense in cash. Because if you're going down a lot lower, it gets risky. Next guy down would be Chase Briscoe. He's 6,000. He's not one of the risky ones, but I really haven't seen too much of him here. I think he's one that can maybe finish within 5 places. So he might lose a few points of place differential, but if he finishes in the top 25, I think he's okay. He's definitely not going to lead laps or anything. So GPP, and I think he'll have low ownership. Ross Chastain, I think, is going to be pretty popular. He's been pretty fast. He's pretty aggressive, so he might be able to figure out some ways to pass if you get a little bit of damaged here. It's not going to be catastrophic aerodynamically, but I think he's going to be pretty popular for a place differential play that people think is pretty safe. Nashville, he was a top 10 running position. He did struggle on some of the earlier tracks, but it seems like his current form is coming into place. So I don't know. I have him as medium ownership. I have him as a borderline cash play. Cole Custer, GPP, same thing. You save $700. I think he's pretty much the same situation as Chastain, but Stewart-Haas really hasn't had speed. Eric Almirola actually has a really good history of this track. He's got the number 5 overall composite. He had a 7.5 average running position here last year. He's good in Nashville. He's really good on these types of tracks. His price is so high, though. I have him listed as cash, but it's really borderline because I don't know if you can really fit him in your build. If you're trying to get 3 guys that are higher, I think with maybe like my Truex and Hamlin build where I'm only, I'm not going too far over 10K. I think I can get him in, especially, with Bell's price at 7.7. But again, I'm not making him a super priority, but I think even though he's been scary this year and the Stewart-Haas team really hasn't had speed, they've been okay on these flat tracks. So I might consider, I'll definitely see if I can put him in my GPP line, which usually those guys aren't as high priced. And I'm willing to take more chances on the punts, but I don't know if I can fit him in a line and like the final guys that come in. Next few guys are fades for me. Michael McDowell, this is starting way too high. He's not a flat track guy. Same thing, Eric Jones. Question the equipment. Have them finishing 32nd and 27th, so they should lose some places. Ryan Preece is way too expensive and starting way too high. Also, he might be able to get up into the top 20, but at 7-8, it just seems pretty steep. But I think he'll have some medium ownership. Corey LaJoy, again, starting a little bit too high, but he might be able to make it work. He's only 5,700, so I think he's finished in the top 25 a couple times here, and he's right on the cusp of that. So he'd be one that you just plug in and hope that he finishes where he starts. Anthony Alfredo, I'm fading him. I think he's going backwards. Loose. There's about 5 guys that probably can get up ahead of him. Ryan Newman, I think, he was like chalk last week and didn't quite work out. But I think people go back to the well here. Okay. Again, I don't really see him really gaining a ton of spots. Like he can maybe get up in the top 25, maybe get in the top 20, but 7,200. I think there's more like Ross Chastain seems a little bit more riskier, but it seems like he just has more like enthusiasm and drive right now. So, and just comparing the two, I might side with Chastain. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he was like chalk last week and he got taken out. It was not his fault. So you call him Recky, Spinhouse, or whatever you want to, but he was collateral damage in that. He has actually done better. At these tracks, like Nashville, he did really well. Last year, 21 average running position. So I can realistically see him gaining 5 to 10 points. I think he's going to be very chalky just because people looking at place differential. So I can see playing him in cash, but I don't think he will be in my cash build. But again, I'll just have to see how everything else works out. I'm not against playing him, and I think I like his upside better than Newman for $100. Haley's GPP is interesting. He's going to be here next year, full-time Cup. Rumor is that colleague has already started to put some resources into him to try to help him finish strong this year, to have momentum going into next year, which is good. 4,700 for speculation. That's a great punt play if you want one. 30th isn't a bad starting spot because I don't really see a lot of the guys here possibly getting ahead of him, and he might be able to get ahead of like Alfredo, Priest, and LaJoy, and Eric Jones and McDowell. So he might be able to move up 5 positions there. Daniel Suarez, I think, he believe is the one that took out Stenhouse, or he was part of collateral damage. I don't remember what happened, but I know he didn't fare well last week, and that's why he's down this far. He was chalky last week, and I think he's going to be highly owned, and he makes sense as a cash play because he definitely can probably at least get in the top 25, if not higher, with this Trackhouse program, who's bought out Chip Ganasky, and so they have a lot better resources, and the program really wasn't that bad this year, but 8,900 is so expensive. Like you could have Brian Blaney for 200 less, or it's just crazy, or Christopher Bell for like 1,200 less. The price is just so unbelievably high here because they knew he was going to be so chalky, and people look for him for place differential. At DK is saying, okay, go ahead and play him, but you got to pay for it. So I think it makes sense as a play, but for him to actually hit value, I think he'd need to finish like in 15th or better, and I just don't see that happening. The rest of these guys are pretty much a fade. McLeod, Smithley, Ware, Blicky, Howard, Davidson. I think they fight for Davidson. I threw as a GPP just simply because he can't lose you any points. He's going to end up with a floor of 1 because he's going to get 1. Actually, he's going to get higher than that because the DK scoring system, I believe, still has 40 cars in it. Potentially, they changed it a little bit, but I don't think it has like 37. So he might pick up a couple points just right there for finishing position. Even if he starts and finishes the race in dead last, he's not going to lose any points. So there's a little bit of floor for you, but he's 5,400 because of that. So you might as well just go with Justin Haley, and which I did today with Mason Massey, saying like he was starting at 29th. Like, what's the worst that could happen? If he finishes 35th, then I get a 0, but he gets me other guys in my lineup. And what happens? He finishes 40th and he ends up losing 10 points for me. Is the worst possible scenario. But the thing is even losing to 10 points, he opened up enough other places that lineup still cashed, even having him lose to 10 points. So I think it's going to be a fun race, and it's kind of sad that it's going to be 2 weeks off, but, looking forward to this, and then looking forward to, watching the news and stuff and studying up and coming back strong for Watkins Glen, hopefully after having a good run here. So like I said, if we have the sheet here, and hopefully this was helpful for you guys to see, how we break things down and how we like make the plays and look for ownership. So appreciate you guys watching. So if we're helping you, if you can give us a like, that just helps us back. Subscribing to our channel also helps us. It also helps when we've dropped our last videos. So you can always, if you want more information, join our Discord. It's free. We got a lot of cool stuff there for people to do and interact with our coaches, and lots of different contests and things that aren't premium, but then we do have our premium packages also. So we're here to help you, and we appreciate you guys watching. So drop some comments below. Hit me up at Twitter at MegaRuler31, and enjoy your 2-week break. And hopefully you have some green screens at the end of the day tomorrow. So thanks for watching.